Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a political story that doesn't start in a stuffy law office, but actually on the hip-hop stages of Queens. Yeah, you heard that right. It's the story of Zohran Mamdani, a totally new kind of voice in New York politics, whose journey was shaped by international borders, artistic beats, and the tough frontline battles for affordability in one of the world's most intense cities.
You know, every once in a while, a figure comes along who doesn't just play the political game, they completely rewrite the rules. And this quote, it just perfectly captures the essence of Mamdani's impact. He's not just another new face. He really represents a seismic shift, bringing a perspective so different that the old guard of politics is kind of still scratching their heads, trying to figure it all out.
So how in the world did he become this agent of change? Well, we're going to follow his story through a few key chapters. First, we'll look at his unique upbringing across different borders. Then, we'll see how the power of music, of beats, shaped his voice. And finally, we'll explore how he jumped into the political fight and really found himself in the fire of public life. Okay, let's start with that seismic shift. What is it about Zohran Mamdani's voice that's so different, and why is he seen as such a disruptor in a city that, let's be honest, is notoriously hard to change?
To really get his worldview, you've got to go back, way back to the beginning. Because his story isn't just a New York story. Nope, it's a global one, and it was forged by migration and the real-life experience of crossing borders.
His journey started thousands of miles from New York. He was born in Uganda to a world-renowned academic father and a filmmaker mother. So his childhood was all about movement, from Kampala to South Africa, and then, boom, landing in New York City when he was just 7. This gave him this incredibly rare, first-hand look at totally different cultures, different systems, and what borders even mean.
Now, he went to some elite schools like the famous Bronx Science, but his real education, that was happening outside the classroom. He got totally obsessed with this one single question. How do cities fail their people? He zeroed in on the practical, everyday ways that urban systems were just not working for the most vulnerable. You know, immigrants and the working class.
And all that digging led him to this massive realization. The systems that controlled race and class, they weren't broken at all. No, they were working perfectly, exactly as they were designed to. So for him, this wasn't about fixing a few bugs in the system. It was about confronting an entire architecture of inequality. And that idea, that would become the absolute core of his political mission.
But here's the twist. His path to politics was not a straight line, not even close. Instead of, say, an internship on Capitol Hill, he took a pretty surprising detour into the world of music and art. And that detour, it would turn out to be absolutely essential for everything that came next.
So get this. Under the name Mr. Cardamom, he developed a really powerful skill, connecting with people through personal, totally authentic stories. His music, like this incredible track he dedicated to his grandmother, was all about sharing genuine emotion and experience. And that's a skill that's, well, often missing in politics, right?
And this is the key thing he took away from his life as an artist. Facts and figures, they can inform you, sure, but they rarely inspire you. To really truly move people to action, you have to tell a story that hits them on a human level, one that feels real and comes straight from the heart.
So, what happens when this artistic storyteller collides with the brutal realities of New York City? Well, this is where his mission really catches fire. This is where that creative sensibility met a fierce, burning passion for social justice.
His jump into politics wasn't some abstract academic decision. It was forged on the front lines, working as a housing counselor. He saw the human devastation of the housing crisis up close and personal in eviction courts, and that experience just solidified his drive to change the system from the inside out.
So when he decided to run for office, he basically threw the traditional playbook in the trash. I mean, while his opponents were busy sending out those glossy mailers, he was on TikTok. Instead of staged, boring events, he offered unfiltered storytelling. And this raw, relatable authenticity became his secret weapon for connecting with a whole new generation of voters. And guess what? This completely unconventional approach worked. Big time. His victory was historic, making him the first South Asian man and the very first Ugandan to ever serve in the New York State Assembly. It was absolute proof that his authentic, unfiltered message hadn't just found an audience, it had built a movement.
But this victory, and the very identity that made his story so powerful, also put a giant target on his back. He was now right in the crosshairs of some intense and frankly often ugly political attacks.
This brings up a really critical question, one that any public figure from a minority background has to face. When you're hit with baseless, racist attacks like that, what's the right move? Do you just ignore it? Or do you stand up and confront it head-on? At first, his strategy was to try and keep his faith separate from his public political life. He basically felt that no matter what he said, the people attacking him in bad faith were never going to listen anyways, so he just tried to keep the conversation focused purely on policy.
But the attacks just kept coming, and he realized his first strategy just wasn't working. Hiding a core part of who he was, well, it wasn't just emotionally draining, it was politically ineffective. He had this powerful realization that he had to find himself in the light. He had to own his identity publicly and without any apologies.
So instead of retreating, he chose engagement. He leaned in. He publicly embraced his Muslim faith and made these incredible efforts to build bridges, holding private meetings with all sorts of different community groups to build understanding and just hammer home his message of shared safety and dignity for everyone.
So in the end, Zohran Mamdani's journey from Kampala to Queens, from hip-hop stages to the state assembly, is having an impact that goes way beyond New York. He is sparking a national conversation about economic justice, about identity, and about what it really means to be an authentic leader today.
And that leaves us with this one big, provocative question. Mamdani's rise shows us the incredible power you can have when you fuse a personal story with a political mission. But does it actually redefine what it means to lead? Is this the new blueprint for leadership in a world that seems to be desperately searching for authenticity? Something to think about.